a strategy absolutely central to my plan for change that will finally take back control of our borders and close the book on a squalid chapter for our politics, our economy and our country. Take back control.
They promised change, and instead we got some sort of weird, twisted Farage Lite, maybe Boris Lite?
So we will be taking back control. We've taken back control. We have already taken back control.
Take back control of our borders. That's what people voted for in Brexit, and they're just not doing it.
This isn't new, it's recycled script dressed up in Labour red. In fact, it can go as far back as Enoch Powell, but we'll come on to that a little bit later. Instead, let's go back to the Enoch Powell arguments, the Starmer arguments that he was making earlier.
Let me put it this way. Nations depend on rules, fair rules. Sometimes they're written down, often they're not. But either way, they give shape to our values, guide us towards our rights, of course, but also our responsibilities, the obligations we owe to each other. Now, in a diverse nation like ours, and I celebrate that, these rules become even more important. Without them, we risk becoming an island of strangers, not a nation that walks forward together.
And this is where it starts to get squiffy. He just said we're a nation that walks together. Well, we aren't. We're a mini EU. We're made up of several countries. Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, Gibraltar, and many overseas territories. In fact, some of those countries voted against Brexit and were dragged out by force. That doesn't sound like they're walking together, it sounds like a dictatorship. But it gets worse, because if you start listening to what he says, it sounds like Enoch Powell.
Here about the impact of immigration on the existing population. For reasons which they could not comprehend, the indigenous population found themselves made strangers in their own country, their wives unable to obtain hospital beds in childbirth, their children unable to obtain school places, their homes and neighbourhoods changed beyond recognition. I mean, you'd agree with that, would you?
In a lot of England, that's true.
And you know where that's from, don't you?
I don't know.
Enoch Powell's Rivers of Blood speech.
Is it?
So-called Rivers of Blood.
So when you have an immigration system that seems almost designed to permit abuse, that encourages some businesses to bring in lower-paid workers rather than invest in our young people.
Okay, so it's not the immigrants, it's actually the system itself that he's going to attack. He's going to complain about capitalism and that business is always orientated to the lowest price. That's what he's going to attack.
Or simply one that is sold by politicians to the British people on an entirely false premise.
Oh wow, he's going to attack Westminster. He's saying that the political system is rigged and it's probably being rigged by business, and that's causing some of the biggest problems in society.
Then you're not championing growth. You're not championing justice, or however else people defend the status quo. You're actually contributing to the forces that are slowly pulling our country apart. So yes, I believe in this. I believe we need to reduce immigration.
Nope. He's going to blame immigrants. He's going to blame the poorest people in society.
Significantly. That's why some of the policies in this white paper go back nearly 3 years. Why I told the Labour Party conference, taking back control is a Labour argument.
Taking back control. We've taken back control. We have already taken back control.
Take back control.
And why, most importantly of all, inward migration is already falling with this government.
So bearing that all in mind, I'm now going to construct, pun intended, an argument to show you what the actual problems are and how everything he just said will not do a thing to solve those problems. In fact, they'll exacerbate it. You can see in this graph here that the population in the UK is aging, and at the same time there are fewer people being born, so there are fewer people to support the aging population. That means the only way you can do it is to increase taxes, or they can make you work until you die.
They're going to make him do this till he's 90.
Now another problem is the fact that housing prices just keep on going up, which means they're more and more unaffordable for the average person. And with less money in your pocket, you can't stimulate the economy by buying products, and that causes you to stagnate. Then you have the problems of wage stagnation, which has been caused by a combination of austerity, printing off a load of money during COVID, precarious job markets like zero-hour contracts. Then you've also got the decline of unions, and Brexit has hit the UK hard because people don't want to invest because they think we're all racist. Nice.
The UK is in one of the longest periods of slow wage growth in living memory. This graph shows the average wage in the UK. It's more than doubled since 2000. And look at what happens when this is adjusted to factor in rising prices, to assess how much a wage can actually buy. And in the 15 years since the financial crash of 2008, those have hardly grown at all. 2008, the typical German household earned over £500 a year more than the average British household. By 2020, the gap was over £4,000, an 8-fold increase. The idea that each generation does at least as well as the one before has, for the moment, ended.
The other thing that Labour could be doing is trying to reduce food prices, but is it going to do that? Of course not. Instead, it's decided to attack the people who grow it, the farmers. And of course, the other big threat in our lifetime, climate change. There's less food being grown, and therefore the price of food goes up. And is the government doing anything about this? Not really. It seems pretty mute when it comes to solar panels and wind turbines and getting Britain green. And instead, it's arresting people who complain about climate change. But the other thing that really shocks me, the numbers coming out showing the number of people leaving the UK. Last year, 479,000, it's been estimated, left the UK before June. That's in part my theory as to why immigration numbers are so high, is because we need people to replace the ones that have decided they no longer want to live in the UK. Now, Starmer could have brought up any of those points, but instead, he decided to talk about
take back control of our borders.
To my knowledge, it doesn't fix anything. To my understanding of all the problems I've just put out to you, what he's talking about fixes nothing. In fact, in the case of care homes and care workers, their plan is batshit and it's going to cause more problems than it solves.
Let's think about, the NHS and the care sector. And the care sector has relied on foreign workers because they just haven't been able to get UK people to do the jobs. The Tories changed the rules, so there's already been a drop-off in the number of visas being given to care workers coming in from abroad. Do you want to cut that still further? Can you see a day even when you say no care workers should come in from abroad?
Yes, we do. And we're going to change those rules this year to prevent the care worker visa being used to recruit from abroad. So we will close, yes. But we will allow them to continue to extend visas and also to recruit from. There's more than 10,000 people who came on a care worker visa where the sponsorship visa was cancelled. Effectively, they came to jobs that weren't actually here or that were not of the proper standard. They are here, and care companies should be recruiting from that pool of people rather than recruiting from abroad.
Over 100,000 vacancies. Some of those vacancies, if you wanted to train up British people, would take 3 to 6 years, and that's if you're lucky. And she wants them to come out of nowhere. There are 750,000 jobs that are not being filled at the moment in the UK. And as long as the birth rate continues to decrease, which it is, I don't see how you're going to recruit anyone. You're going to have a worker shortage.
Saying we need to bring in a new fair pay agreement for care workers because we saw that huge increase in care work recruitment from abroad, but without actually ever tackling the problems in the system in the care sector.
But there are already.
Increased wages are good, but I don't think it's enough at this point. You need a societal change, or you're going to have your parents move in with you.
Can almost imagine somebody running a care home emailing us right now saying, I can't get staff. Where are they meant to get their staff from?
Well, we want them to recruit. We've got this pool of people who came as care workers. In good faith, they were recruited, but because there were no proper checks in place, because there were no proper standards, what instead happened was people were being exploited, really badly exploited. Those workers are still here. Care companies should be recruiting from those workers. They can also extend existing visas.
She wants a pool of 10,000 people to fill a gap of 100,000. You couldn't make this up if you tried. And this is my point. Anything they're suggesting is total gibberish, it won't work, you might have a short-term fix, and that's literally throwing meat to the far right, instead of actually dealing with the serious problems that actually, if they campaigned on, I think people would back, support, and want to see improved. Whilst also taking the hot air and nonsense out of the immigration and immigrants causing problems argument that the far right love, because they would see that actually it's economic issues and an economic policy that has caused their downfall. But no, Starmer's gone for the Lord Melchett viewpoint.
That's the spirit, George. If nothing else works, then a total pig-headed unwillingness to look facts in the face will see us through.
Maybe this is more British than I give it credit for. Leave your thoughts in the comments. And if you enjoyed this video and got this far, please hit that like and subscribe button. It's free and it really helps the channel. Once again, I'd like to say a big thank you to all of my Patreon and YouTube subscribers and members. You keep this channel going and growing. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.